And just tell me when.
All right, we're all set.
All right, thank you. Welcome everybody to the Monomoy Regional School Committee. We did open the public session at 5:32. Then we adjourned into executive session pursuant to MGLC 30A section 21 in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and to discuss strategy with respect to the Monomoy Regional Educators Association, Unit A. And so we are now back and resuming the meeting at 6:37. So we are on the regular agenda now. We've already called to order and we are going to move straight to our student representative. Welcome, Amy Hinesley. You are up.
Hey everyone, thank you so much. For those of you who don't know, this is Amy Hinesley. National Honor Society sent out senior sophomores whose GPA qualified to apply frequently. And students will state out whether the action will be held on April 8th. The coach may fall season last year, allowing the football team to start practicing and playing. For recap, winter girls basketball finished their regular season with an 8-3 record for the Islands League Lighthouse Division, while boys basketball finished their 2-3 at the Island League Lighthouse Division. Girls ice hockey finished with a 2-4-5 record, a 4th in the Cape Olympics, and ice hockey finished theirs with a 1-6 record. Senior girls ice hockey captain Nikki Ewalt was named the All-Star League Sportsmanship Awards and Most Valuable Player. Seniors Gabby and Ash were named Cape Crew 104's Cape Cotters of the Month for leading the girls basketball team in raising and in a car accident recently. This March, or every March, is Best Buddies Month. Order lectures, facility awareness, and hope to continue spread about with disabilities throughout the year. The March Rotary Student of the Month is Senior Bradley Alexis. And on March 11th, Senior Sean soccer at Riviera University. In theater news, the Monomoy High School Theater Company marching.
Amy, can you hear me? Amy, sorry. It sounds like we're having a little bit of connection issue. And I hate to ask you to do this because I love seeing your beautiful face. You might want to just turn your video off for just a moment and just continue to read.
Okay.
Thank you. That might help. Thank you.
You want me to restart or go from where I was?
Does everybody want her to restart? We were getting bits and pieces of it.
Sure.
Okay, why don't you restart if you don't mind, Amy?
Okay, that's fine. Let me just turn my video off.
Let's just see if that works. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me again. So a lot has happened in the past month, but this is just a quick recap. National Honor Society sent out invites to juniors and sophomores whose GPAs qualified them to apply. Students will soon find out whether they were accepted, and induction will be held on April 28th. The COVID-specific Fall 2 athletic season kicked off in the past few weeks, allowing the football and cheerleading teams to start practicing and playing. For a recap on winter sports, girls basketball finished their regular season with an 8-3 record at 3rd in the Cape Islands League Lighthouse Division, while boys basketball finished theirs with a 9-2 record at 2nd in the Cape Island League Lighthouse Division. Girls ice hockey finished with a 2-4-5 record at 4th in the Cape Islands League, and boys ice hockey finished theirs with 1-6 record. Senior girls ice hockey captain Nikki Ewalt was named the Cape Islands League All-Star and received the League Sportsmanship Award, along with the Most Valuable Player. Seniors Maggie Dever and Leah Nash were named Cape Country's Cape 104's Cape Cotters of the Month for leading the girls basketball team in raising money and gathering birthday gifts for a Barnstable student who was badly injured in a car crash recently. March is Best Buddies Month, and this year, we had many orders for our disabled label t-shirts for disability awareness. We hope to continue spreading awareness about the importance of support for people with disabilities throughout the rest of the year as well. The March Rotary Student of the Month is Bradley Alexis. And on March 11th, senior Sean DeVoe signed his letter of intent to play soccer at Riviera University. In theater news, the Monomoy High School Theater Company presented Alice in Wonderland over Zoom from March 18th to March 20th. Despite the different format due to COVID, the presentation was immensely successful with many viewers. For Women's History Month, the Monomoy Young Women's Club created the That's What She Said display on the second floor of Main Street to highlight female voices across the globe. And last Thursday, Ms. Doyle attended the Interact Club meeting to talk about an elephant sanctuary in Tennessee that she supports. It provides captive elephants a safe environment dedicated to their well-being, and Interact loved hearing about how important this sanctuary is. Just yesterday, Best Buddies got together to go bowling. Due to the guidelines, a lot of the usual Best Buddies fun has been on hold, but luckily, events such as this one were able to be organized to keep everyone safe and having a good time. That is all I have for you this week. I hope everyone could hear.
We heard you beautifully, Amy, and thank you so much for doing that for us again. We always like to hear what you have to say.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any comments, questions for Amy from school committee members? All right, I don't see any, but Amy, thank you as always for delivering a wonderful report. So we'll see you
so much.
in a couple of meetings, right? 2 more meetings? Yep.
So.
All right, great.
Have a great night.
Yep, we'll see you soon. Thank you. All right, moving on to the next item is approval of minutes, and we have 2 sets of minutes to approve this evening. The first one is March 4th, and this was from our community forum on the future of our elementary school minutes. Could I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Nancy. A second?
Second.
I think I heard Terry. Any discussion? All right, so we're going to do a roll call vote. Again, this is for the March 4th Community Forum minutes. And we're going to start, let's see, going around my screen. Nancy.
Aye.
Thank you. Jackie.
Aye.
Thank you. Sharon.
Aye.
Thank you. Joanne.
Aye.
Thank you. Terry.
Aye.
Meredith.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. And Joe, can you hear us? All right, Joe had to step away for an emergency, but he will be returning, just to let you know. So let's just have Leah, wherever you went somewhere in my screen. If you could just make a note that Joe had to step away for a moment. So that does approve, that passes with 7, and I guess 1, not here. All right, March 11th is the next set of minutes, and this is from our March 11th meeting. If I could have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Nancy. A second?
Second.
And Meredith has seconded. Any discussion? All right, so we're going to do a roll call again. This is for the March 11th meeting minutes, and we will start with Nancy.
Aye.
Thank you, Jackie.
Aye.
Thank you, Joanne.
Aye.
Thank you, Terry.
Aye.
And Meredith?
Aye.
I'm an aye. And Sharon, are you with us? Sharon has stepped away and Joe is still stepped away. So for the recording of the minutes, Leah, we had 6 yeses, and however we record 2 people stepping away. Thank you very much. So we're going to move into public comment. And members, speakers are limited to 3 minutes, additional time at the discretion of the chairperson. Do we have anybody from the public who would like to speak this evening? All right, I don't see any. Okay, we're going to move along then into reports and discussions. Equity Task Force update presented by Mark Smith, Director of Curriculum. So Mark, you are up.
Thank you very much. Mark Smith, Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment. Just going to give me a second to get my screen up here for everyone. Let's see. Does everybody see the presentation? Yes. In my in my ever going or ongoing quest to outdo Michael, this time I decided to, the best way to outdo Michael was to bring guests with me. So I've brought guests with me on my current presentation to present with to the school committee about the ongoing work of the Equity Task Force. So as the committee is well aware, we have an ongoing Equity Task Force. The work our recruitment efforts launched this summer, and we have got going in earnest early in the fall with our first set of meetings. And after a series of larger whole group meetings, we've now broken off into subcommittees, and we're working in subcommittee work. We started initially establishing using the whole group meetings to build some shared knowledge around equity and access, really try to understand where some of the gaps are nationally, and then sort of drill that into locally, build some shared knowledge around cultural archetypes, implicit bias, etc. And then the group, we sort of started with this larger group, and we've gotten down to about half the size of the initial group, but really a core group of people that were dedicated to move the work forward. And that group really was interested in moving from talking to doing, right? So that led us to forming 5 subcommittees. We have more topics that we'd like to drill into, but with the number of people we had and thinking about people that were willing to take leadership roles and how people decided between their first choice and their second choice and how kind of all that shook out, we landed with 5 subcommittees that started in January. And those are the 5 subcommittees you see listed there. And what we're going to do tonight is I've got a representative, for in most cases, we have 5 subcommittees, a chairperson on 4 of the subcommittees. And one of the subcommittees had a chairperson, but that chairperson had to step down from the chairperson duties. And then the rest of the group is just sort of sharing the responsibilities. So Lisa has taken on the responsibility of coming to talk to the group for that group tonight. So anyway, so each of the chairs from the groups and Lisa is going to talk about just an overview of what's been done so far and sort of what the next steps are to give the committee an update. So I'm going to turn it over to the first group, which is the Restorative Practices group, and I'll let Abby introduce herself and give you an update.
Thank you, Mark. Hi, everyone. I'm Abby Dudley. I am the assistant principal at the middle school for those who I have not met yet. So I am chairing our Restorative Practices subcommittee. We are a small but mighty group. We've been meeting regularly monthly and kind of completing little projects in between our meeting times. So as far as what we've worked on so far, after our first meeting, we decided that if we're going to be looking at restorative practices as they apply to student discipline, we first needed to get a good idea of kind of where we are as a district with our discipline practices. So our first task was to do a data dig. So we took 5 years of school district data as it applies to discipline, and we broke it down in all sorts of ways. So we looked at the data by gender, by race, the types of infractions that were being logged. We looked at the age level, the different schools, and then also the administrative response to any disciplinary infractions. So then after we kind of understood the waters that we were swimming in, we moved to, as a group, creating some common understanding of what we meant by restorative practices. So we spent some time there so that we're all on the same page. And then since then, we've kind of moved more into the action phase of our work. So we have started a student handbook project. And what we're doing is we're looking at the handbooks for the 4 different schools and analyzing them with this lens of restorative practices to see where our handbooks are not aligned with this idea of using restorative practices with discipline. So as of now, our committee members are working through those handbooks. And then when we have our April meeting, we're going to start presenting what we have found as individuals in those handbooks. The other action step that we're hoping to get done by the end of the year is to create a student survey on the student experience of discipline and how that might relate to restorative practices. So we're in the phase of building the student survey, and we do hope to get it out by the end of the year. And then our last step is to change the world. And that's it.
Abby,
Yes, sir.
Abby, Terry Russell.
Hey, Terry.
How's changing the world going? Pretty good?
I mean, one day at a time, yeah.
That's what you got to do. You got to do that. I'm way behind the curve here. Could you give me like a 1-minute description as to what you guys mean by restorative practices?
Yes. So restorative practices are an approach for discipline, but I would even say kind of once you start using them, it speaks to a broader school community approach. So the idea is kind of compared to the traditional approach of student commits infraction, student sees principal or assistant principal, student receives punishment, which usually, like in a very traditional approach, would mean serving some sort of time. So a restorative approach looks more at there's an issue and it's working with the student and whomever the issue is with to make repairs to either the community or if it's an issue with another person. And it's an approach that helps the child and often sometimes the adults that are involved in these practices as well really understand the root of the issue they're having, and then the repair is so that we can change the behavior moving forward, which through research is not always seen in the more traditional approach. I think I went over a minute, sorry.
That's okay. That's kind of how my wife handles my misbehaviors. Same I do, and it's working. And
Good.
That's why my world has changed.
There you go.
Good job. Hey, welcome to Monomoy Regional.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. And Abby, it was Abby, right? Abigail? Yeah, Tina Gaines, Chair, welcome. So good to meet you face to face. I know we've exchanged a couple of emails of introduction, but I just wanted to thank you for answering that question. That was a good question, Terry. Actually 2 decades ago, I was involved in restorative justice policies with the League of Women Voters on a national level. So I really appreciate what you've are implementing here and the way that you're doing it and how it is changing the world. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you so much. And does school committee members, anybody have a question while we're on this segment? It doesn't look like it. Okay, go ahead, Abby.
I think I'm good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to communications, which is going to be Joy.
Hello, everyone. Joy Jordan, Community Engagement Coordinator for the district and Chair of the Communications Subcommittee. We have a great, really enthusiastic group of folks volunteering for this subcommittee, and it's a nice mix of both caregivers and educators, so we're getting lots of perspectives. They've been just ready to hit the ground running, and so we've met bi-weekly, I think about 6 times so far in the last couple of months. And one of the first things we did as a group was sort of figure out exactly what this subcommittee is going to work on. And we came up with sort of 2 parallel paths, one of which is equity in the district's communications and then communicating out on equity issues. And what that means is the group wants to look at all of the communications that the district is sending out at every level, school level, district level, to ensure that they're being sent out in a way that is reaching everyone in the best way possible. So that could mean sending messages out in a bunch of different formats, making sure messages are translated into the recipient's preferred language, those sorts of things. And that's sort of an ongoing review process that we're doing as a group. And then the other side of it is communicating out on equity issues. And that is going to start with a very broad overview and update of the work of the task force, because there was a lot of communications that went out as Mark was trying to recruit people for the task force, and then there hasn't been many updates. So we have drafted some updates for the school community, and I think we're actually prepared to send those out tomorrow. If not, it'll be next week. And it will just provide an overview of what work the task force is doing, and then a brief description of each of the subcommittees so folks understand the different topics that are being addressed. So those are pretty much in the can and ready to go. We've also created some graphic elements along with that so we can present it in a bunch of different formats to people. Moving forward, as I said, we're going to keep reviewing the communication that's going out to make sure we're not missing any one by way of how we're sending messages out. And we'll continue to update the community, both the greater community and our school community, on what the various subcommittees and the greater task force is doing. And we have started a resource list that we're going to share on the website that'll both be geared to families and to educators, providing all sorts of different resources about equity, whether it's books or movies or articles to read, so people can kind of educate themselves along the way. So that's, I think, it from me. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Joy. Questions from school committee members. I'm just going to scroll through. Anybody have a hand up? Let's see. Doesn't look like it. But Joy, I will just say thank you as always for good work and your team here. Just love it. Love the equity and communications. So thank you so very much. And thanks for all your efforts to make this equitable.
Happy to do it.
Thank you.
All right, and then our next group, I'm going to hand off, we have co-chairs, two of our students on the Student Voice and Experience Subcommittee, Molly Graham and Maximus Weinberg.
So I can kick it off here. I'm Max Weinberg. I'm a sophomore, not that exciting. But I am a co-chair of the Student Voice and Experience Subcommittee with my good friend Molly Graham, which is also very exciting. So touching on what we do a little bit here, our main vision of the task force was how do we improve the student experience? How do we make the student experience more equitable? How do we involve what their issues are? How do we solve those issues? I don't want to say we're like the Ghostbusters, but we're like the Equity Busters. We find equity and we hopefully implement it or see a non-equitable situation and try to make it equitable, make it good for everyone. That's really what we try to accomplish. Our subcommittee is mostly comprised of students, which is good, but that also comes with a lot of roadblocks because, after school is a very busy time for kids. So we just got to meeting on a bi-weekly basis, which is awesome. I tend to, in a few other organizations that I work on, we have these lesson plans that we kind of educate everyone, give them a toolkit so they can go out and complete the work better. So Molly and I are kind of working on that, trying to devise a plan so every member of the subcommittee is, equipped with the right tools for the job. And we've got our core group. We're always looking for more people, always looking to expand, but I would say I'm incredibly proud of the people who have come together around us. Molly, would you like to take it over here? Because I've been talking for a very long time.
Yes, I'm Molly Graham, and I am also a sophomore and one of the chair members of this subcommittee. So the next steps of the Student Voice and Experience is being able to find an effective way to reach out to more students and get more members so we can have a variety of perspectives and opinions in this group, because we do have a group of dedicated students who are involved and happy to work alongside us with the total end goal of what we have, which is the idea of equity and just improving students' experience at school. But in order to gain more students, I feel the most important thing is to create an environment where students are comfortable and so comfortable so they can express their opinions and express their concerns and thoughts. And then eventually, once we have more students, we can implement the student vision that we have created into the school community. So I think that's the main goal for our next steps.
Wonderful. Are you ready for questions now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Anybody questions for Molly or Max? Let me just scroll through. School committee members?
Molly and Max, if I were to close my eyes, you are so articulate. I would have considered you one of the faculty. Now,
Thank you very
I
much, sir.
noticed when I
Thank you.
scanned this list, I've got a grandson in the sophomore class. And I think he's president of the class. His name is Declan. And
Yeah, I
think
have
he's
a few classes with him. He's a very, very good kid.
Oh, I wasn't going to say that. I'm surprised his name is not on this list, and I'm always pushing him. So why don't you, the next time you bump into him and say, Mr. President, however you want to choose to call him, his grandfather thought it would be good for him to join this group.
I'll do some aggressive negotiations. Hopefully
Whoa,
it'll
nice way
go
to
well.
put it. And I'll talk to him outside. Thank you. Good job.
Thank you. Sharon, go ahead.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
So I guess I could say I have a granddaughter, Hope, in that class too, that I've suggested that. But my concern is that we don't have enough people of color in any of our subcommittees or in our general group. And I don't know, honestly, what portion of our students are students of color, people of color. And I don't know how much representation there is on our overall group, but I think everyone, I have to agree totally with Terry about the two of you sounding like adults and being highly skilled. But I'm wondering, as students, do you feel like we're well represented in that way on our larger committees and on this committee?
Well, I would have to say no, because obviously the school, we were looking at statistic as a whole, as the equity task as a whole, looking at the percentages of students who are people of color, and the percentages were definitely low. And I am a part of various clubs and different programs, and most of the time I'm the only person of color in the group or in the environment, and I'd say even in a lot of my classes. So there is definitely a lack of representation of diverse voices. But one thing, there is a separate group that Monomoy does have, which is the International Club United, which I am a part of, but it is a group of mainly of all people of color with different cultural backgrounds, ethnicity, from different nationalities and languages. And hasn't been active as of COVID, but it does have representation. But in general, I feel a lot of clubs, and specifically just our subcommittee, the Student Voice and Experience, but the Equity Task Force as a whole does not have a diverse voice. So to answer that, I'd say sadly no, but I just think it is definitely a pattern, because in a lot of clubs, there's barely any people of color around or involved in anything, I would have to say. So that's definitely a big issue that I think is very important in the school, mainly the high school, as I'm in high school. I'm not sure about the other clubs or middle school and stuff, but I think that is an issue of the high school. So that's just what I have to say on that.
So Molly, if I can piggyback on that a little bit, I did some digging on my favorite website, Public School Review, and looking at their graphs here, which are up to date, less than 25% of the high school in general is of any minority or a person of color. It's 80, our school in the high school level at least. I can jump over the middle school real fast, but it is 82% white Caucasians. So there is definitely, if minorities weren't already underrepresented, it's definitely a little bit more so in Monomoy, and trying to amplify those voices is really the best thing we can do. We know that, meeting after school, once every 2 weeks is probably the best we can do, but it's a little inconvenient for a lot of people. And not a lot of people have the time to sit in a room and talk to your principal and some of your teachers and some kids who you've never talked to before about your issues and what's really affecting you. So our kind of plan for how do we get those voices involved, even if they don't want to come to the meetings or sit through the meetings or talk to people, is kind of just don't make them come to us, but go to them, reach out to them, and really put them on this pedestal instead of them having to come and then be like, oh my God, yes, you are brave. We come to them, we hear what they have to say, we bring it back to the larger task force, we get back to them with a response or an answer, or hopefully a result, which is something more equitable. So getting that perspective, getting the voices on the task force is something that we would all want, but I don't know if it's necessarily a completely feasible goal given right now.
So Molly, that group, the international group that you're talking about, will you be able to somehow survey them or?
Yes, I was definitely planning on doing that, but I have had, the club has been inactive this whole year because of COVID. They've tried to have meetings, but the Google Meet was not working, and people weren't, like I said, like Max was saying, people don't have as much time, definitely, because I feel everything being online, a lot of people don't have as much time or the opportunity to become more involved in schools, just in general. But this club has not been active, or nothing has been happening. But I was definitely planning to and hoping to, once the club is started. I was thinking, they were mentioning, I think, next year, so next school year. I was definitely hoping to talk to some of the people and just see if they would be interested in joining this subcommittee or their thoughts on any of it, because yeah, that is a good way to be able to get more members into the subcommittee.
I really appreciate what you're saying, Molly, and I do happen to notice that your principal's on your subcommittee, so it seems like you'll be able to work something out. All right,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Questions for Molly or Max? I am scrolling through. Okay, I don't see any more. But Molly and Max, really fantastic job. I mean, I am just truly blown away. You're both sophomores, so we've got you for another couple of years, and I'm very excited about that. So really excited to see where this goes. So thank you very, very much for your work. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Before we transition to the next group, I'll just add a little bit that Max and Molly have both been really considering this, to dig a little bit more in this idea from early on. We had a meeting to piggyback off what you were saying, Sharon, with Jen Police, Max, Molly, and myself, really to talk about this idea that, Max and Molly both recognized very early on that, yes, we have this structure for the task force, right? But just because we have this structure in these meetings, that isn't necessarily conducive for everybody. And that might be a barrier for some people's voices to be present. And so that they, as a group of students, wanted to figure out how do they get around that barrier and go find the voices. So they've been really keyed into that from the very beginning. And separate, or I guess not really separate, but sort of parallel to that, I know Jen and I have had lots of conversations, and Jen is very, very much very much values the student voice as a part of her principalship within that school. Not to speak for her, but I think a lot of that comes from her counseling background. She very much values the student voice. So I think, there's a lot of forces moving in the right direction, in parallel directions there at the high school, that are going to be very supportive of each other. All right, moving to the next group. We're going to hand it off to Lisa, who's going to talk to us about the Academic Pathways Subcommittee.
I thought you unmute me. I'm sorry. I just. Can I just say something also, just to get back to what Sharon was asking? We have the distance learning seminar class at the high school that's been running since September, and it is filled with opportunities for all our students to express their opinion about equity and inequities. So we're also, let's not forget about a really fabulous seminar class that the first half of the year, half the school took, and now the second half is taking it, and they're really getting many opportunities to have student voice. So I just wanted to add that as well. Okay, the Academic Pathways Subcommittee. We're very small, as you can see, and it seems like we're going to get a little smaller. We're down really to 3 consistent members, and then one of our members is going to Hawaii in 2 weeks with a one-way ticket. So we're going to try to meet when she can do it. Will be 12-hour difference. So why I'm mentioning that is because if anybody would like to join our subcommittee, we welcome you, because 2 does not make a strong subcommittee. I mean, we work hard, but we'd love some more folks. So if you're interested, we'd love to have you. Okay. So we renamed ourselves Academic Pathways to Success. Originally, it had the word tracking in it. We didn't like the word tracking. But what we're doing is we are actually in some way tracking students from their elementary grades, their scores on standardized tests, their grades in the classroom, tracking them as early as kindergarten and first grade in terms of their reading abilities, and then looking at whatever figures we can look at, like I said, standardized test scores, grades from the classroom, and other reading testing, and seeing if they're making progress. So we're looking at, we started with very young ones, and then now we're looking at 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. But let me get back to the slide before I get too far ahead of myself. We created a little Google Classroom for ourselves so we can keep all our documents in one place. We have been meeting bi-weekly on Monday afternoon evenings, but that may change a little bit. And then we agreed in the very beginning of our work on the following priorities. Let's focus on reading first. Let's not worry about math yet. Reading seems to be the foundation to everything. So let's acquire data on reading levels at both of the elementary schools and see what they look like by race, by language, first language, the ELL students, and then free and reduced lunch students. Because we just don't want to look at race. We want to look at some of the other barriers to success. And so language, poverty, these are barriers sometimes to success. In other words, the running records of these students. And I just want to say thank you again to Principal Robin Millen at Chatham Elementary. She spent over an hour with us in one of our meetings. We met with her remotely. She taught us, really. I mean, we all, the three of us just sat there and took notes while she taught. She taught us how the district assesses reading and understands data and what they do, the kinds of special meetings and special programs and curriculum that they include to improve reading levels. So that's all been completed. So what are we doing right now? We have chosen categories, as I mentioned earlier, from MCAS scores, grades 3 through 5. And so we're analyzing numbers over this 3-year period to see if there's growth or decline in a student's academic progress in reading. Again, we're focusing just on reading. And what we hope to do is eventually make some, I guess, make some suggestions. Deb Klein, who's listed there, she worked in Connecticut in administration in elementary schools in Connecticut for almost 40 years. I have 30 years of teaching under my belt. Samantha is a student, and student voice is always important. And Janine has a great background with numbers and very passionate about education. So we're not going to pretend that, oh, you know, Robin Millen, this is what you must do. And Mary Oldak, this is what we're telling you now what to do. We're not going to tell anybody what to do. But what we're going to try to do is see if there's any kind of perhaps some implicit hidden bias that might be, you know, rearing its ugly head and getting in the way. Perhaps it's a lack of communication with our immigrant families, or what's missing, what's still getting in the way of these kids. And what especially worries me is I've done my data looking at race, and I'm concerned why some of these students in 3rd and 4th grade did pretty well, made progress, or, you know, met these expectations. And then by 5th grade, we're starting to see them drop. So these are some things we're going to investigate, eventually getting into the middle school levels, and then eventually the high school. It all started because we're looking at our AP classes and our honors classes, and clearly those classes have lower participation from students of color, ELL students or post-ELL students, and students who come from the reduced lunch category. So what's getting in the way? Why aren't they taking, if they have the abilities, then why aren't they taking, you know, an honors level class? What got in the way in middle school? If their standardized tests are good, but they're not taking these challenging, so those are all questions that will probably take a whole nother year to even attempt to answer. But I just want to make sure I stopped looking at the slide for a minute, but I think I basically covered the slide. We thought you can't talk about high school AP and honors courses and why, you know, why we're having these issues without starting at the beginning and following these students. We felt you had to go to the elementary schools and see what are we doing for kids who are struggling, and are we looking at everything? So I'm sorry if I went a little bit over.
Thank you, Lisa. Great presentation and very, very good questions. I am going to look very forward to seeing how those questions get answered. So thank you for that. School committee members, I am scrolling through, and you might have to just call out because I'm scrolling through. Oh, Meredith, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you, Lisa, for that presentation. Reading is close to my heart, and so I appreciate that you are looking, you know, not just being a high school, you know, part of the high school faculty, you are stretching, you know, your understanding and going to those lower grades to really see what the building blocks are for these students. So hopefully, you know, as you research more and dig deeper, you know, hopefully we can find some ways to close those gaps for these kiddos. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you. Those are our goals. Thank you for recognizing that. Thanks.
Thank you, Meredith. Anybody else from the school committee? I'm not seeing any hands. All right, Lisa, great job. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I know your dedication to this, so I really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right, Mark,
All right.
Go ahead. Yeah.
And then our last subcommittee is the curriculum subcommittee, which I am the chair of that committee. And you can see our list of members there on the left-hand side. We have a good sized group. And the work that we've done so far in our group is we spent some time talking about what did we want to do as a committee. And we really did kind of start with this really big, broad goal, which was similar to Abby's goal of sort of changing the world, and really wanted to start sort of the committee essentially wanted to change the entire curriculum overnight and make it completely more inclusive, which we already have a lot of stuff in process, and there's a lot of changes underway. But we really wanted to move towards what was something, after we had sort of these big, broader conversations, we wanted to have some conversation around specifically identify one area within the curriculum that we could inject some diversified perspective. So after having that conversation, we decided to focus on something that's referred to in Monomoy as the sacred book list. And so the sacred book list is something that has gone back, I don't know, at least since my last go through Monomoy. The sacred book list is this idea of books at each grade level that are sort of protected, so that like the fourth grade is going to use these novels, and they want to make sure that the third grade teachers don't use them, so that the kids haven't read them before they come to the fourth grade. And the fifth grade has these novels they want to make sure the third grade uses, and so on and so forth. And it goes all the way up through the high school. And so that list is in place, and it was actually just recently sort of recirculated and updated among all the ELA teachers across the district. And we had a conversation within the committee about, let's take a look at that list and let's do some analysis of that list. These are the lists these are the books that we're saying in the district that are so important that we want to protect and that we're using in all of our, that we're holding on to. And we're going to do some analysis of this list for bias and perspective. And I have a tool that comes from the Department of Ed that we can use. And I'm fortunate on our committee. I happen to have three of our librarians on the district, which is really, or from our, in our district, happen to be on this subcommittee. So I'm sort of leveraging their strength, areas of strength for this particular task. But so using this tool, we're able to go in and take each of the books, and this is what we're currently working on, and dig into the author, into the main characters, in some of the like the setting and the publication dates, etc., and build a profile for each of the books. And what the profile essentially looks at is, it looks at the author, the race, ethnicity, and gender of the author, does the same for the character, the main character. It also looks sort of socioeconomic profile of the main character, family profile of the main character. And then, when you start to do this across multiple books, you start to see what is the general profile that students are experiencing as they're reading books, as they're going through your curriculum. And I have a pretty good sense of how it's going to shake out, but we're going to go through the exercise to make sure we have the empirical data to point to verify where I think it's going to come out. And then what the group will then do, and this is where we're really going to leverage the librarians, is then to start to make recommendations for alternative texts that stay within the themes of these books, right? Because the themes are important. The themes have purpose that the teachers are using them for. But what are texts that all offer alternative and more diverse perspectives, but are connected to a similar theme? And then to be able to offer those, and for us to start to work those into our curriculum and substitute them out for some of the sort of more Eurocentric male perspective texts that dominate our current grade 3 through 12 canon. That's what our task force is currently working on right now. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Sharon, you are on the subcommittee. Is there anything you'd like to add or comment on?
I like the way Mark is doing it, because what he does is he has us get together at the beginning as the whole group. Sometimes it's only half of us there, but whoever's there, and he'll do some education and we'll talk about the goal. And then he'll have us sometimes break into smaller groups and we do some work on things and come back. So that's good. I feel like this is going to take us like 5 years or something, because it's just, in other curriculum things I've been involved with, it was always, you'd work on it for 3 to 5 years and then you'd be ready to start all over again. And that's just how progress is. But this isn't something that's going to be done this year, as far as what I can see. But it's very interesting. I'm learning.
Yeah,
Thank you
and
for
I
that.
would, oh, sorry. I
No,
would
go ahead.
say, I would just say that, so this, yeah, I would say a big yes and to that. I think it is ongoing. I would say we have parallel projects currently running in the district, just to let, the school committee to know as well. Like, for example, the ELA curriculum, which we're working on implementing, addresses at the K4 level, addresses a lot of, diversity diverse perspectives in just sort of re-looking at curriculum pieces. The high school, sort of looking at the canon at the high school, this approach, we already did this a couple of years ago. So they've already started inserting more diverse text at the high school level. They semesterized some of their courses already at the high school level. Lisa's already talked about, just bringing in the whole seminar course. There's talks about sort of what's that going to look like next year. There's the high school courses as far as electives are going. There's a whole big conversation going on at the high school right now. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on. I don't want people to think that these are the only things that are going on. This is work that's specific to the Equity Task Force. So there is a whole bunch of other work going on in the district as well. But this, and to Sharon's point, we're also working on education around issues of equity. I'm learning too. I'm as I've been leading work to, Sharon mentioned, when we have our whole group meetings, because we still have these groups where all the members get together. Like we just had one last week, and where they're more like, I don't know, I guess like more like discussion based, where it's centered around a topic. So the last one was around sort of pitfalls, right? So pitfalls that organizations can fall into around equity issues. And we explored those, we have discussions around them. And they're really about building our collective knowledge as a group, so that as equity leaders in the district, we can continue to grow our knowledge, so that then we can be more effective in our subcommittee work. And then the subcommittee work is more action oriented, like actually getting some stuff done. And so, but then parallel to that, like I'm learning my own stuff, right? Melissa and I have been taking this, Melissa McGuire and I have been taking this anti-racism PD through the state. That's been fabulous, like all year long. And I've been participating in another one with actually with Melissa as well, through the Excel network. They've been doing the SEL work has almost all been equity focused this year, and through the work with Robin Millen's been doing with the Deeper Learning Network, they've had a whole equity lens to their work as well. So, and then I'm trying to bring that work back to these groups. And then the administrative team's been doing other stuff. So there's all these other pieces that are going on as well. This presentation is like a sliver of a sort of a larger pie of work that's going on across the district.
Thank you, Mark. Any other questions from school committee members? I'm just scrolling through. I don't see any, but I will say, and good night, Lisa. Thank you so much. Lisa's leaving our meeting. But Mark, I just wanted to say, I love from what I know of the members, I'm happy to see Sheila House on there. And that to me says a lot about what you're trying to do. And Angie Chalaka, Cindy Maycomber. I'm just looking at some of these names, and I think you've got a good group here.
Yeah, I would just say in the task force as a whole, because then there's some people who aren't represented on these subcommittees who come to the larger whole group meetings but couldn't commit to subcommittees. and that's another like half a dozen to a dozen folks who come regularly to the whole group meetings. So we've got a nice word. To Sharon's point, we are not as ethnically diverse as I would like us to be, but we do have a good representation from across the community. And we need to figure out how to change the ethnic diversity piece and the racial diversity piece for sure. But we definitely have fingers in different parts of the community for sure. People that are dedicated to the work, which, it is, there's two sides to that same coin, because, if you're looking to dismantle systems that advantage people who look like me, then, it's not the responsibility of people who don't look like me to fix the systems that advantage people like me. It's the responsibility of people like me that look like me to fix the systems that oppress people that don't look like me. So I have to be there to do that work. So, it's sort of there's definitely a need for more diverse voice, because, I have only one perspective that I bring to the table, but I also have to be present to do the work. So it is definitely a double-sided coin.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Now I can see everybody. Any other questions, comments?
I only have a comment. I'm worried now about our Michael. What is he going to do at his next presentation?
He has to bring a parrot to the next meeting.
He's going to have to do a ventriloquist, clearly.
Just said the bar's so high, Mark.
Michael, don't worry.
He has road maps. But great job, Mark. Thank you so much, and to everybody on those subcommittees.
I cheated. I brought great people with me, so.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the Global Studies Program. And this is a presentation, the 2022, the Balkans service trip. And I did see, John Dixon, there you are. I think you're on telephone. Can you hear us? And you'll need to unmute on your end. And John, Mr. Dixon, can you hear us? All right, I think I'm going to skip over this and we will come back. All right, we'll come back to this one. Let's move ahead to special education report presented by Melissa McGuire.
Good evening. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. I am going to not spend time on the 33 pages of the report this evening. I'm hoping to bring joy in this presentation for you this evening, and we'll condense what special education is into 3 slides so that you can see the pure joy of what is happening across the district. So, oops, let me my movement. So I thought this quote was incredibly powerful. It was actually a quote that came out of our equity imperative course that actually Mark had spoken about. And I thought it was very powerful because I feel that this is really where we should be for all children. For every increment of performance I demand from you, I have an equal responsibility to provide you with the capacity to meet the expectations. And I just felt that was powerful because we need to think about that for all children. And I keep saying all means all. So whoops, my little scrolly is not working. There we go. So I first need to start because I have to thank all of our special educators, all of our counselors, our team chairs, our speech and language pathologists, our occupational therapists, nurses, psychologists, school counselors, and instructional assistants, principals. There wasn't enough room on the screen to actually put everyone, but first of all, we have to thank them because this work doesn't get done without the incredible dedication and commitment of our teams. And then, of course, our parents. have really stepped up to the plate, especially this year. And I've been able to spend a lot of time with parents in terms of having conversations about, what this looks like this year, and never realizing how much goes into education and how much goes into teaching a child, never mind a child that may have a disability. So here's my 3 quick slides till we get to the fun stuff. And I want to warn you, when we get to the fun stuff, you should probably have some Kleenex available. So what is special education? Here's the Special Education 101. Special education is specially designed instruction for students with a disability who have difficulty accessing the general curriculum and making effective progress. Specially designed instruction is where we look at how do we modify the curriculum? How do we modify not just the content, but the way it's delivered and how we might measure that progress. And in order for a student to be eligible for special education, there are a variety of categories of disability that they would qualify for. So these are all the different types, categories of disabilities that one can qualify for special education services. And then these are the 6 principles that we look at for special education. First, of course, it starts with the parent and the student and their participation in their educational program. And then making sure we have an appropriate evaluation to determine if they are eligible with one of those categories of disabilities. And then developing an individualized education program and making sure that that program is free and appropriate public education. And what that really means is that all of the services and supports through special education are of no cost to a parent. And then also making sure that we are designing our programs for students to be in the least restrictive environments so that they can make effective progress. And then finally, understanding the procedural safeguards and the regulations that surround special education and what is available for parents and students in terms of their due process. So this is where you need to get your Kleenex out, because we're going to take a beautiful walk of our students and the wonderful things that are happening. So first, we're going to start with Chatham Elementary. And we're going to move to Harwich Elementary. This is the preschool. I'm going to pause because Leah is telling me there's no audio, so let me fix that. I apologize. It was great music, but we'll move forward. Hopefully now it's working. Okay. right, and on to the middle school. I wanted to highlight something that Jackie Buckley, our teacher of the Shell program, said, because it made me smile. And she said so many positives in spite of the lack of inclusion opportunities and obstacles the pandemic has presented. It's been a great year. So I really appreciated that, and all of the amazing activities that she's engaging her students in. If you hadn't had an opportunity to listen to one of the morning announcements at the middle school, Adam O'Shea has done a spectacular job on those videos that they create for the morning announcements. I spoke with all the parents in the program, and I actually shared it with our Associate Commissioner of Special Education at DESE, because it was just incredible. And I didn't have enough time to add that as well. But they're doing some great work. They have their own gym class with obstacle courses and activities set up for the students. They're teaching bike riding, scootering, rollerblading. You'll see a couple of pictures of that in a moment. They're doing meaningful art projects, such as painting banners to thank the cafeteria workers. They're spending lots of time outside. They are doing a virtual Best Buddies. They've done some beach field trips. They've gone sledding, and they've accessed the stage every day to perform a talent show, as well as a winter holiday performance that they were able to live stream for parents. So despite this, they're doing amazing things. So let's take a peek. I do have a couple of pictures in there that represented pre-COVID purposefully, especially related to the Special Olympics. So what Jackie was able to do, once school closed, we typically have Special Olympics in the spring. And so they were able, so the picture you saw in the last video had the 2019 crew for the Special Olympics. But this also was amazing. She was able to do Special Olympics virtually.
Jenna! Woo! And then run back. Ready, jump. Good. Go, 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 go.
And next, we have Monomoy Regional High School. Just again, that was pre-COVID. That was our team from last year. So I don't want anyone to think everyone was so close without masks. So I would be remiss if I didn't share the last Special Olympics that we hosted at Monomoy, which is a state organization. And Shana Grogan was instrumental in making it what we were told to be one of the most successful Special Olympics, such that they asked for it to be back at Monomoy last year. But of course, we were closed, but I do want to share this with you. And today, hot off the press, they sent me pictures of the first Best Buddies bowling night. That was last night. So I was so excited I was able to add these in for you tonight. And then we have a couple of graduations that happened this year for students who either turned 22 or were in out-of-district programs who met the requirements for graduation. So I'd love to share 3 stories. One of our students in our shore program, William, graduated in December. And this is his very good friend who's saying goodbye to him. You have to listen a little closely, but it's quite heartfelt.
Hey, William, I know you're sad because school was canceled. And you're an awesome kid, man. I like how you sing, I like you better when I'm with you. And I like helping you with your iPad, and you're an amazing track star, man. We're gonna miss you, Will. We're gonna miss your laugh, your smile, you being there for me and Mrs. Mann when we work out, you telling me what to do, you calling me out sometimes. You're a funny kid, William, and you choose the best friend ever. You're the best friend that has ever happened to me, William. I like having you around. We're gonna miss the world. I'm sorry.
And this next student is from an out-of-district placement. And just to let you know, this student worked extremely hard, had significant challenges and barriers and overcame them. And I was grateful to Jen for both of these students that we were able to bring to the school for Jen to present their diplomas to them. We have one more student who graduated early this year. And that is my presentation. And that, for me, far better represents what we do for our students than that 33-page report.
Thank you, Melissa. And I especially love when I know some of those kids. So thank you so much. Any questions, comments from school committee members? Sharon, go ahead.
Yes, before I say any questions, though, I do have to say how thrilled I am with our services for our more intensive special needs students. I love that you featured that. My questions are about students that have ADHD, LD, more at the middle and high school. And so I was looking this over today, this many-page handout. And aside from inclusion, for academic support when the kids have nonverbal learning disabilities or some other learning disability, what services do they have that are more geared to just them, not so much inclusion?
Sure. In addition to the academic support, there are modified classes for students that require more explicit or especially designed instruction, where they are pulled out into a smaller group with a special education teacher. And that's across, all the levels. So, and primarily those subjects are math and ELA. Specifically at the high school, we, do have social studies and we do have science as a modified class as well. So those students are identified and through the team process, those services are developed and put into their IEPs.
So if a student needs, because they have, a lot of kids don't just have one thing. They have, social, emotional, and maybe some type of math or some kind of disability. And so are you saying that there are, I think you just said something about social studies and science modified, but it still would meet the criteria to pass that subject. It just needs to be prerequisite teaching and maybe some modifications?
No, for the modified classes, it's more than accommodations. It's actually specially designed instruction. The content is actually modified to meet their learning need, meet them where they're at academically. But those courses are at the high school and are in the program of studies, and they receive credit for attending them as if they were attending any class. So it's part of, it's part of the regular scheduled courses for students who require a modified program.
And would some of those students that needed modification in some things still be able to go to college, for instance?
Absolutely. We have lots of students who graduate and go to college. This year, and I'm not sure I put it in the report. So Mr. Osceola, please don't ask me what page number I have anything on at this point. But we are very, very fortunate, and we will be doing concurrent enrollment with Cape Cod Community College next year. The students had an information session this week. And so we have at least 5 or 6 students who will be able to have dual enrollment at the college. So we're very, very excited about that. But yes, we have a lot of students who actually continue on to college.
Thank you so much. I was one of those dual enrollment teachers at the college. It was fun having some kids from some of the lower Cape schools come and participate, and they did just as well as other students. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Any other questions, comments, school committee members? Terry, go ahead.
Melissa, thank you. I reflect back half hour ago when Abigail had 2 or 3 goals on her subcommittee, and one was tongue in cheek, but really when she listed to change the world. Those slides, your team and those teaching assistants, you clearly over a course of a year changed those kids' world. And what a grace-filled moment that is to watch it. And their parents must have walked away and say, whether it's first grade through 22 years old, what a gift. What a gift is a public school we provide. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Anybody else? Just want to build. Melissa, just wanted to add to what Terry said is one of the things I noticed in all the photos and the videos, even with a mask on, I could see smiles. So I just wanted to say that. So you're doing something very well. Thank you.
I'm not. It's our
team.
Educators are amazing.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other comments, I guess we will move to the next item. Melissa, thank you very much. And that was moving, and I did get tears in my eyes, so thank you. Thank you for that. All right, I see Mr. Dixon. John Dixon is back with us. So we're gonna move back up to the Global Studies Program 2022, the Balkans Service Trip. So John, I saw your camera on, but if you wanna go ahead and take the mic. And John, can you hear us? Because I did see your video on. All right, I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulty there. John, you're back again. There you go. We can see you. Can you hear us? Can you say something? What? Okay, we can't hear you, unfortunately. I think you've got your phone. Okay, turn your mic on again. There you go. And we can't hear you. But I do see your phone, so you're in twice. I don't know if you want to unmute your phone and we can try to come back to you again. I just hate to keep coming back. All right, I guess we're going to have to jump over, and I apologize, John. Let's try one more time. If you have a phone, if you want to unmute your phone, perhaps we could hear you. Yeah, we can see. I can't hear unless it's me. Is anybody else here? I see you pointing. Okay, we just can't hear you, unfortunately. All right. Okay, we're going to have to jump onto the, all right, we'll try one more time. We see your video. Okay, all right. We're going to move on to the next item, which is FY22 budget update. Michael?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much. So there's not a big, I don't have a big presentation, so I'll still need to, Mark has taken the lead and I can't catch up this time. But really, just to give you an update, we presented to the Harwich Selectmen yesterday, and they voted to approve the budget that school committee had approved a couple of weeks ago. So that's great news and gets us that a bit closer to having a final FY22 budget. So we don't need a vote or anything. It's just an update tonight and let you know where we got to. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions, comments? Terry.
Tina, Michael, good to hear your voice last night. Did I hear you say the Howard board voted to accept our budget?
Yes.
We did.
What was that later on in the evening after the warrant review?
Yep.
Yeah, they went through the whole warrant for the town meeting, and for each article they voted to put onto the town warrant, and then they voted whether or not they would recommend it, and they did both for the.
Oh, good. I left early. I thought they were going to come back and visit us. Tino, your 5 fingers were up. Was that a signal of a vote?
Yep,
Yes.
It was signal of all 5. It was approved by all 5.
Well, Michael, through your reference, Scott, that's just as good as Mark Smith's presentation. You made my night. I didn't know that happened.
Yep, it did.
Michael did all the talking last night.
Yep. Yeah. Michael really, he wooed them.
I wish I could say that.
They had Michael on his toes, didn't they, Michael?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
And they definitely had some questions, and I know they're frustrated with how the assessment works, but they kind of at the end of the day they all voted to approve it, and I think they were grateful for the work we'd all done and the school committee had done getting us down to where we are with the budget. So I think they recognise the efforts we've gone to. Well, it's never enough, but.
Well, Michael, your first time through the corral down here.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thank you, Michael and Scott and Terry. It was a good dialogue last night. So thank you. All right, it looks like we are still having some technical difficulties, and I believe Ms. Police, I think we want to reschedule him, or did you want to say anything or just reschedule?
I know that he had a presentation, which I think that I think the right thing to do is to honor you all as the folks that are going to be either approving or declining the trip. So I think that we should do this the right way and reschedule it.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation.
Okay, thank you. So we'll put that on the next agenda, which will be April 8th. So Leah, if we can just make that note, thank you very much. So moving on to the next item, equity in our elementary schools, the next community forum, stakeholder update. So there's a couple of things here. We have picked a date for our next forum, which is May 6th, I believe. I think it's May 6th. And Joanne and I met with the 2 elementary principals this morning, Robin and Mary. Thank you very much for your time. It was a really, really good discussion. And Joanne and I took copious notes. And Joanne, I don't know, would you like to take the lead and perhaps report out, or would you like me to start?
For me, I walked away with 2 words that we have to honor. One is a timeline, so that there's a comfort level in what is going to happen and how and when and where and why, rather than just going back and forth with ideas. And the second was configuration. And I thought the conversation was very good. Forums, we've heard what people had to say. There was a conversation about focus groups with an essential question, which we don't have an essential question. We're just, what do you think? What do you want to say? But I think one of the things we came to was it's not productive and it's not a good way of working together. So we have to develop some kind of a timeline, some kind of an essential question before we go back in again. And then the other thing we heard was give the teachers and the administration a little time to digest what's going on. They're still trying to run classes and make sure they're teaching to every child. And until we have a good essential question and we have a good timeline, just back off a little bit was what I got.
Thank you,
Tina,
Joanne.
what did you think?
Yeah. I keep hitting my mute and it goes back again. So, yeah, there we go. So the question that Joanne and I left with after meeting with our elementary principals, and we talked about two things. We talked about the teachers and how best to get their input, and both principals had some good suggestions. We are thinking the teachers have done a lot this year, and if we wanted something in person or some type of forum or that thing, there was some discussion about waiting a little bit because they've got a lot on their plates right now. So if that's something we want to do to perhaps push that out past the spring, just to give them some time to breathe a little bit. Community stakeholders is another area that we talked about today, and both principals have a lot of experience with pulling stakeholders to the table for the playground committees, for their school councils, and had mentioned their efforts in going out into the community and asking people to be a part. So we were having some conversations about that. One of the suggestions, and I guess I'm going to throw this to the group for some feedback. May 6th from 6:30 to 8 is what we tentatively have for our next forum. When we were together 2 weeks ago, we were talking about perhaps having community stakeholders be a part of that or leading it. I don't think we're going to have enough time to pull that together. So that might be something down the road if we want to revisit it. What we might have time for or not, and I'm just going to throw this out, but there was a question that Mary Oldak gave us, because one of the things we talked about this morning was, what is the key question? So if we're going to have another forum, what is the end goal? What is our goal for the forum? What is the key question? Mary Oldak offered this question, so I'm just going to put this on the table for everybody to think about. What is the best configuration of our schools, and I guess elementary schools or schools period, for student learning? So what is the best configuration of our schools for student learning? It's an open-ended question, and we can think about if that is something we want to take on, that question, for a May 6th forum, because there was some agreement with Joanne and I is that if we follow through and have our forum on the 6th, Joanne and I were in agreement that we want some different voices there. And so does that question open up different voices? So I'm just going to open it up and get some feedback. And Sharon, go ahead. You can go first.
I feel that it's very, very important to have the next one. I think that time in May is a good time. Any time before the end of the year. I wouldn't want it like the last 2 weeks of school. But I like the idea of doing it this year because we went to Chatham and we did it there. It may be I don't think that Harwich parents or Harwich people will like the idea that we only went to Chatham. So I would like to see, I know that they were invited, but I've talked with a lot of people, none of them knew they were invited. They didn't feel engaged. They thought that was for Chatham. We had said we were going to do another one that I thought over here. So I think that's important. Now, the teachers are another whole group of people, and I don't know how productive it will be. A lot of times listening to people, we don't get new information, and sometimes we do. Sometimes it's very helpful, but we hear what people think. And so Chatham has their concern about the Chatham Elementary School. Harwich parents would have some thoughts on and I'm thinking really of the elementary school age, not high school or junior, middle school, but what they would do. Like if they were in, I don't know, we keep picking East Harwich because that's the closest, I guess. Well, we could say South Harwich, but any amount. Would all those parents want to be mandated to go to Chatham? I mean, there are some things that I think we'll hear from people they'd like or they wouldn't like, just like we heard from Chatham.
Thank you, Sharon. And Joanne, I see your hand, but I just wanted to clarify that the last forum was not targeted just to Chatham. I mean, I guess where you might be thinking, Sharon, is we did make a commitment to the Chatham Board of Selectmen to have a forum, but everybody was invited. So I just wanted to make that clear.
I know that, but everyone doesn't know that, and the majority of people are in Harwich. So if it was for everyone, the logical place for it to be would be in Harwich, but it was about mostly Chatham Elementary School and the problem related to that. So I'm just speaking, if I was a resident of Chatham only, I would not know what I'm saying. People from Chatham don't know what Harwich feels. People from Harwich don't know what Chatham feels. And so one can't speak for the other.
Yep, good point. Thank you. Joe, go ahead.
Let's see. How is this working now?
Good.
Good? Okay, thank you. I think the most fruitful approach would be a presentation from the superintendent and the elementary school principals regarding what they think is the best configuration of elementary schools, the what's and the whys of that, drawing on their educational expertise, their familiarity with the educational research in these areas. And I'm thinking something similar to what Scott Carpenter and Michael McMillan did as a presentation to begin our last forum, but with a different focus specific to this one. And once real information is made available to everybody at the same time and at the same place, and perhaps references provided for further research for people who want to dig in and find that. At that point, I think it's fair to ask people what they think, ask parents what they think is the best configuration educationally for elementary school students. Because if our recent past is a guide, when I say recent past, I'm thinking of the was it last December that a poll was sent out to parents about what they thought would be the best way forward? And we got a result that could have been predicted if you had only a slight touch of cynicism in your DNA, which was Chatham parents wanted what was easiest for them. Harwich parents wanted what was easiest for them. None of them agreed on anything, and they had no particular sound educational basis for making a decision. Personally, I'm far more interested in the poll where teachers said what they thought was a good configuration. That's a very important avenue to explore, in my opinion. So yeah, let's have a forum. Let's talk to people. Let people say what they want to say. Let's hear things. At the very least, let's try to continue to tell people that the plans haven't been made already in some back room on Crowell Road, and all this is a charade because the secret decisions have already been made. So let's get rid of that idea that's out there. Let's have a discussion. Let's have a conversation, but begin it with a real solid knowledge-based presentation that our principals and superintendent are more than capable of delivering and our parents, residents, and taxpayers are more than in need of hearing.
Thank you. Terry, thanks, Joe. Terry and then Scott.
I agree with everything Joe just said. Summary. I think we have some healthy lead time also with this. I think we can do just so much with virtual meetings. So my thought would be to include Mary and Robin with Mike and Scott as a team to pose the question of what's at stake for this Monomoy region. And then open it up for what we did the past meeting, and this is all virtual, and receive it as best we can. And we're only going to do the best we can. It's a huge issue, and I myself feel that a timeline we can buy all of almost next year. So between next fall and into the early winter, we can continue, and by then, with any luck, we could have actually real meetings with moms and dads, meaning in the same place in a room, and continue the conversation so that by some date, let's just say before any budget, but let's say mid-January, all of this issue would come back to the school board, the school committee, where then we would have a final discussion and ask from our leaders what their recommendation is after these forums. And then we would probably take a vote and move on. So in brief, I think it's a good idea to have a spring, knowing with all the complications, spring forum, and we'll do all we can to encourage as many Howard moms and dads to plug into us. And then we move into the plans for the fall in the hopes that by early or late September, we get some more information from the Chatham Select Board and the Chatham voters maybe as to what their sense is in the area of parity with keeping a small school and seeing what solution they can come up with, if any. So that's my 10 cents. And I think the meetings you had with Mary and Robin were a good idea, and I think they're two key people that have a high profile.
Thank you, Terry. Scott, go ahead.
Sure. I've been sort of filling Tina and Joanne in on a little research endeavor that I've been undertaking since our last forum, where I've been looking at all of the different examples regionally in Massachusetts where individuals are, or individual schools, districts are doing something a little bit different than what we are at the elementary level. And I've been talking to superintendents, and then I sort of expanded from that to look at every regional school district in the state and how they're structured at the elementary level to look for examples that we might be able to get some insights from. And I actually had, it was right before our meetings this evening, I had a great conversation with the superintendent out at Quabbin Regional. And I think if I reflect back on some of the conversation at the forum that we had, some people were asking about, should we be looking further out Cape for, how's Wellfleet, handling their elementary school, or how's Provincetown handling their elementary schools? And I actually think that, when we look out west and what's happening, these central and western Massachusetts are suffering from the exact same thing that we're suffering on the Cape. They continue to lose school age enrollment. They're losing young families, and for very different reasons than the Cape is losing school age families. But this one school district was just sharing that they've actually gotten 3 different grants to have third parties come in and look for operational efficiency and effectiveness, how they might do things differently within their region. And there are grants available to regional school districts and to towns to to look at things like this. And she was, the superintendent was just talking about these three different grants and the different ways that they went about it to have different entities look at this. And I don't want to, raise hope that that's the ultimate solution, because I think in my conversation with her, it's clear that even in we'll call it rural central Massachusetts, the concept of sort of the autonomy of one's hometown still rings very true there too. And so I think despite having three different reports, and it seems that every one of the reports came up with the same solution, the solution has as yet to be moved upon, because I think there's still that sort of very town by town nature, and they have, I think theirs is a 5-member district, but I think I do think that there might be opportunities for us to get a third party look. And I think just as we, I think when we take the question that Mary was raising, how can we improve effectiveness of education? I think if we go, potentially enlist a third party to look at that same question, in addition to the steps we're taking, that might be a useful avenue to at least get a third party opinion.
Thank you for that. And Joanne, I saw your hand.
Oh, no, I was just sitting up.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And the hand came with me.
The hand. I also, Sharon, before I call on you, I also don't want to lose sight of, because it was Robin actually who recommended that it would be really helpful for us to put together a timeline for this.
Yeah.
Because, folks in the community are, a lot of things are getting a little stirred up because there's so much uncertainty. A timeline that looks a little bit like Michael McMillan's roadmap. That might be a nice timeline. Okay, Nancy, go ahead.
So I was just thinking, and Scott, you kind of alluded to it and the timeline alludes to it, but I almost feel like we're going to go in circles until there is some sort of roadmap into what we actually want to do. And wherever that decision has to come from, if we're going to decide as a body that we want to look into reconfiguring our elementary schools, and we want to see what that's going to look like, and we want to see what that's going to do, and we're going to create a roadmap to get to that point. Or we're going to make a decision as a committee that we want to keep Chatham Elementary School, predominantly Chatham Elementary School, and figure out how we're going to supplement students in there. And we need to figure out the best way to do that. But I feel like we're just going to go in circles listening to everybody's opinions and what they want to see and how it's going to work until somewhere somebody makes the decision of what we're going to investigate first. So like Mary had the guiding question, what would the best educational program, I'm going to butcher your word, sorry, but I believe the gist was, what would the best educational program be for the elementary schools ish? That's about right. If that's the guiding question, then we need to decide, or some group of people, whoever that group of people includes, we need to decide what is that and what are we going to strive to do and how are we going to get there. Otherwise, I think, I love the community forums. I like listening to what everybody has to say, and it's not going to help us get to a deciding point. And I don't know how to do that. I'm not saying that I know the answers and how we're going to get there. I just feel like there needs to be the end point, and we have to figure out what that end point is. And then from there,
we can get to that end point. But like I said, I feel like we're going to go in circles until we figure out what we want to do ultimately.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Joanne?
The guiding question is, what is the best configuration of our schools for student learning? And I think if you put that in your head and go with what Terry said about a timeline, or you don't have to rush through it. What did you say, Terry, when we can meet in the fall, non in person?
Well, yeah, I was just alluding to the fact that I think we can buy time, and we can look towards working this through. And I admittedly, forms are something that we have to do. It may be challenging. It's kind of like going to the dentist. That's something we need to do to make certain the moms and dads feel an input. But a timeline, as I sit here, and it's nothing novel, and I think I like Scott's third option too, is to have a spring forum, as you folks said, virtual, and then look towards next fall and through the early winter to have, hopefully with the pandemic at rest, having some public in-space meetings, rooms, where those interested could come and we could get a stronger sense of where we're at and include a third party, so that if you get a timeline, that the quickest would be midwinter of next year, mid-January, February, where we as a school committee would get the report back from Mary and Robin and Scott and Michael and Mark to say, here's what we've gathered and listening to everybody and what needs to happen, and it is this. And then we would take that and do a vote or decision on it. So it would be like midwinter, where of next year, that would be optimistic, I would think, that we would then be able to look towards a plan that would include Howard Elementary and Chatham Elementary. And again, I've run out of ideas, but upper, lower, switching, whatever the number is, redistricting, whatever it all worked out to be, and then begin to promote that next spring with the hopes that you'd launch it the year after next. In the meantime, and I conclude with this, that if that's the optimistic, we would be hopeful to hear through smaller group discussions with the Chatham Select Board, the Chatham Town Manager, and what they're doing in the hopes of getting a vote next, say, fall, to change whatever needed to be changed in our regional agreements, and also an attempt to try to help out with the student cost.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you. Sharon?
Yes. I think a lot of these comments are very helpful. I like the idea a lot of a roadmap. I do think that I'm not sure if I'm hearing that people want this. I kind of feel like I hear mixed things about having a spring meeting, but I do think that a lot of everything about this isn't just educational. That is the primary reason, but in order to get people on the same page, you have to have them feel like you care about what they think. And I do care about what they think. So I really would like to see a spring forum for parents because we said we would have it. Now, all of a sudden, if we decide not to, I think that's going to be seen by some as not being wanting to hear their voice. And then we get a whole bunch of professionals in here and decide, all kinds of things without them if we haven't done that. The other point is that I think we should take into consideration when our budget process is, so that we either have this done a good bit before then, or that we go through next year with still being on our roadmap and assuring the Selectmen and Finance Committee people that will be decided the next fall. So it's because I hear from both Harwich and Chatham that they want a solution. They don't want it year by year. So it sounds like this might be working out okay year by year for this year. So I just want to be sensitive to those two things, that's all.
Thank you, Sharon. Anything else? So is the consensus to at least stay on track with the May 6th forum? Is anybody opposed to that? All right, so I don't see any opposition. So why don't we, for now, we'll stick with the May 6th forum, and Scott, we can talk, you and Joanne and I can talk about, you know, the guiding question or how we want to structure that, and then we can come back to the next school committee meeting and just present that piece. Okay. All right, thank you. So that will be the plan, and then we'll be thinking about that roadmap. So, all right, moving on to the next item is subcommittee reports, legislative liaison, and that would be me. I'm just gonna very quickly share that I attended the MARS, which is the Massachusetts Association of Regional Schools. They had a virtual legislative meeting last Friday, and it was quite enlightening, you know, just for me. And I just wanted to share, there was a lot of discussion about the rescue plan, the CARES Act, stimulus money coming down. So I actually learned quite a bit. There's also a rural and regional schools commission being formed on the state level. So there was a conversation about that. We talked a lot about the fully implementing the Student Opportunity Act. So there was a lot of, you know, just conversation about budgets. The Common Start Coalition, which I had sent everybody a link to if you're interested in following their efforts. There's legislation. It's kind of hopefully kickstarting universal pre-K. So it's an effort, you know, making accessible and affordable pre-K, and also kind of leaning into childcare as well. And then we talked a lot about regional school transportation, broadband access, what efforts are being made on the state level to really increase that because of all the virtual learning. And yeah, retirement, you know, there was some conversation about people retiring at, you know, earlier ages, and how that affected school budgets. So anyway, I just wanted to share that I attended that and took a lot of notes, and I will be attending as many of these as possible because there's some more coming up, and I will just report back as necessary. Any questions? All right, seeing none, we are going to now move into the superintendent's report. Scott?
I will be quick here. First, I'd like to thank the Massachusetts Cape and Islands Workforce Board for their grant in the amount of $2,000 for the high school career program. And then I just want to turn the ball over briefly to Robin for her to do a little recognition pitch on a community read.
Thank you. So I'm Robin Millen, the principal at Chatham Elementary School, and I thank Dr. Carpenter for his invite to come to speak to you, and invite you all personally, both the school committee and the public, to our second deep learning event of about the year. It's been a little bit over a year since our first event. The first event was a family event. This one is a little bit different. We have engaged community partners in an all community read, and this first part of this event is actually two parts, and they're connected, but they're independent of each other too. So the first part has been launched. It is the all community read, and it's involving the book In Search of Deeper Learning, the quest to remake American high schools. I did not put Vanna on the stage. Oh, look at them all. See, look at all the books. So we are very lucky to be working with Eldridge Public Library and Brooks Public Library, Harwich Elementary School, and some of our other community partners. And the read is out there. Obviously, people have books in their hands. And Eldridge Public Library, Brooks Public Library, and Chatham Elementary School are going to be hosting 5 book discussion groups. So as the community reads, and we can come together in much smaller discussion groups, unpack the ideas, the questions, the thoughts, all the things that work, through this book together. And so those are on our website, and I'll drop the connection to those in the chat box in a few minutes. The second event is also very exciting for us. And the book is written by Dr. Jal Maheda and also Dr. Sarah Fine. Dr. Maheda was the, I don't know if you remember a few years ago when the team went up to Canada and they chased one of the researchers down the road after he spoke, and they wanted to know more about him, and they found out he was from Harvard. And they said, oh, we're from the Cape, you can come down and visit us. Well, he is. He's coming down virtually. He's going to spend April 28th with us at 6:30, and he wants to host a more global conversation with our community. It is, he's going to do a quick presentation so you don't have to read the 400-page book in order to, join this event. But he is going to present the construct that he bases this off of, and this is actually the same background that is the Kaleidoscope, which we're working with DESE on in the Deeper Learning grant and the pilot school that we're in. So it is very exciting for us, and we really hope that the community gets involved in either one way, both ways, however you want to do that. And I just have to say, listening, I don't have a parrot here tonight. I don't have money. I don't have a roadmap, and I don't have a timeline. But everything that you guys have been talking about tonight, the equity, the achievement, mastery, all means all, is really the underpinnings of deep learning. So if we can continue to have these conversations as a community, I think we'll have a clear vision as to whether or not this fits us at Monomoy, if this is the way that we think we want our schools to operate, and also what we're going to take and leave from the different opportunities that this information provides. So join us, and again, I will drop the link into the chat so that you can get some more information. So I thank you for your continued support of this work. Also to Eldridge Public Library, Brooks Public Library, Coherence team, and also Kaleidoscope at DESE.
So once upon a time, my life involved learning and teaching, like the community read, and now my life involves COVID, and more COVID. So in terms of the biweekly COVID report, if you look at the Cape Cod infection or the current case graph, it's starting to frighteningly look like we are entering or very much into a third wave. The only thing that doesn't look third wave about it is the little graph that many of us get emailed to us by the county every day. When they came into the second wave, they changed the color from sort of oranges to greens, and the colors haven't changed yet. But the look of the graph is that it's going up. And what's troublesome is that while many of us are vaccinated, in fact, I think many of us on this call as either educators or we'll call them retired educators that have been vaccinated, but there's a very substantial uptick in the number of youth that are coming down with COVID. So this past week was actually one of our most challenging weeks in the school district since the start of the pandemic. And that has, I think, all of us a little concerned. We just finished our fourth week of pooled testing. Our first week of pooled testing, we had no negative or no positive cases. Every week since then, we have had one of the pools has had a positive case that has been caught through the pooled testing. I would have to, in truth in advertising, only one of those I think was a truly asymptomatic that would have gone under the radar screen, because I think the student never truly progressed into a classically sick individual. In the last 2 weeks, the individual who tested or who was positive in the pool was asymptomatic when they were doing the pool test. We don't get the results for 2 days later, but between the time that they did their pool sample And by the time we got the results, they developed a full-blown illness and needed to go home. So, so they were picked up by, we'll call it, more conventional methods. So COVID is not going away quietly, and I think I think many of us are very concerned with this combination of April vacation about to happen, the governor's orders, the governor's travel order has sort of just been reduced to a travel advisory, that we're potentially at risk for this what appears to start looking like a third wave to actually pick up some steam. So I hope that things on the Cape turn around quickly. We're also a little bit worried, and I know that in Meredith School District next door, they've brought in the rapid response unit from the state because there is a cluster that appears to be next door in Dennis Yarmouth, and as you saw in the news today, Barnstable has pivoted to full remote, and again, there are challenges that we're seeing on the Cape. Sandwich is now, I think, probably for one of the first times in the red zone, and so we're seeing a lot of not good signs out there, and a lot of that's happening in our younger populations. So there's my cheery news on COVID and what we're facing. But I do give our staff and our parents and students and administrators a lot of credit for being flexible through all of this.
Thank you, Scott. Any comments, questions for the superintendent's report? I'll just note very quickly, I will send an email out to everybody about the community read. I've already signed up. I signed up on March 6th. So I just wanted to let everybody know. And I'm looking forward to it because in my old school district, we did 2 of those, and they're just really wonderful. So I'll send that out via email to school committee members to make sure you have the link to register. Okay, moving on. Let's see, action items. I think we have done everything. The declaration of surplus. Could I have a motion?
All right, I move to approve all items to surplus as presented in our packet.
Second.
All right, sounds like Meredith has made the motion. Nancy has seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All right, so we're going to move to vote on the surplus as presented in the packet, starting with Nancy.
Aye.
Thank you, Jackie.
Aye.
Thank you, Sharon.
Aye.
Thank you, Terry.
Aye.
Thank you, Joe.
I'm down with that. Aye.
Joanne.
Aye.
Thank you, Meredith.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Wonderful. So that will pass. And the presentation of warrants, since we're meeting virtually tonight, Joanne did go, I think, earlier today, I believe, and signed on our behalf. So we'll have those presented, or we'll have another batch coming the next time that we meet in person. And with that, we are at the end of our agenda for tonight. So could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Joanne has made the motion. Sharon has seconded. And we're going to go around and roll call. This is a motion to adjourn. Nancy?
Aye.
Jackie?
Aye.
Sharon?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Joe?
Osceola, aye.
Thank you. Joanne?
Aye.
Meredith?
Aye.
Great. And I'm an aye, and we are adjourning at 8:45 p.m. Thank you,
Good night.
everybody. We'll
Good
see you
Good
in
to see you all.
weeks.
Stay safe. I like your glasses, Nancy.